We need to see a cease. We need to see a humanitarian pause so we can flow. We need to see ceasing of the...
For a guy that typically comes off as very rehearsed, this was an incredible slip-up. So during an appearance at a leaders' summit in Washington, D.C., Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was asked about Israel and Gaza. And he confirmed that he definitely supports a humanitarian pause. Check out this clip.
We need to see a cease. We need to see a humanitarian pause so we can flow. We need to see ceasing of the levels of violence that we're seeing. We need to see civilians protected. We need to see a humanitarian pause.
I mean, that was amazing. That was absolutely amazing. He was so close to calling for a ceasefire accidentally. This is just one of the most incredible slip-ups I've ever witnessed from really any world leader. Because we're in a moment right now where we have thousands of people, as I'll get to, from these mass marches all over the world, calling for a ceasefire. It is clearly the right thing to do, yet you have the world leaders, the allies of Israel, be it Canada, be it the US, be it the UK, continue to support the indiscriminate bombing of civilians in Gaza. Trudeau has to know what the right thing to do is, but he doesn't prioritize what the right thing to do is. He prioritizes his allies and what they want to do. Once again, Canada, not a leader on any issue. Incredibly embarrassing. But you have here, recently this came out from the NDP, one of the other parties. So in case you're not Canadian, right now the NDP is the third largest party in Canada. They recently came out to demand that Trudeau calls for a ceasefire. And they did this, as they say in their letter here, after more than 100,000 Canadians wrote to them calling for a ceasefire, showing you that this sort of pressure does work. Now, yes, you need a lot more pressure when it comes to moving actual governments, because again, we're talking about just a party here. But this is why it is so important to see tens of thousands of people in the streets all over the world marching for a ceasefire. So as State News writes here, demonstrations in support of Gaza take place in at least 24 Canadian cities. So this is in Ottawa, thousands there. This is in Toronto. Let me play this clip.
Free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine!
So thousands more there. This is at night in Toronto. After 5 hours, tens of thousands. And ceasefire is really the bare minimum. And you can't even get world leadership to agree to that. Because, of course, the larger issue at play here is the ongoing occupation, the apartheid. But it all begins with the ceasefire. All these people are calling for, these tens of thousands, I would say millions worldwide, maybe not in the streets, but millions worldwide, are calling for the Israeli government to stop indiscriminately bombing civilians. That's it. This is not hard. From Common Dreams, Let Gaza Live, a month into Israeli war, massive U.S. protests demand a ceasefire. So this is Washington, D.C. Play a bit of this.
And he is a member of the Palestinian Youth Movement.
And of course, we're on Elon Musk's Twitter. So the first reply is from some dipshit calling it an anti-Israel rally. How is calling to save children's lives that are being indiscriminately bombed, how is that an anti-Israel rally? It's an anti-Israeli government rally. So I guess we can agree there. But this idea that, these people calling to save children, they're anti-Israel just generally, is disgusting. From Common Dreams here. Demonstrators in D.C. carried signs with messages like "Stop U.S.-funded genocide," "Ceasefire now," and "Let Gaza live." Sharing a photo from the D.C. gathering on social media, Representative Ayanna Pressley said, quote, "Solidarity with the hundreds of thousands of people nationwide who marched in support of a ceasefire now. Our pro-peace, pro-humanity movement is strong and it is growing daily." Israel has faced global criticism for cutting off the people of Gaza from food, water, fuel, and medicine, as well as bombing homes, schools, medical facilities, religious buildings, and a refugee camp. Some citizens of Israel have joined in worldwide demands for the International Criminal Court action on escalating Israeli war crimes and genocide. Pro-Palestinian protests were also held around the world on Saturday, including in Berlin, Germany, Dhaka, Bangladesh, London, England, Paris, France, Milan, Italy, Santiago, Chile, and Tokyo, Japan. Scientist and organizer Lucky Tran said on social media that we are witnessing the biggest global anti-war protests since the Iraq War in 2003. And Ryan Grimm here sharing this out. This has to be the biggest pro-Palestinian march in U.S. history. Another clip here from Washington. Cori Bush, also, of course, in support of a ceasefire, writing here, St. Louis, D.C., South Korea, Germany, Norway, South Africa, Puerto Rico, England, Japan, and so many more places. Millions of people marched today showing solidarity with the Palestinian people. And some images here from San Francisco. Big march here as well. Now, rather than advocating for a ceasefire, the Biden administration has pushed for humanitarian pauses in what critics are calling Israel's genocidal air and ground assault on Gaza, launched after Hamas-led surprise attack on Israel on October 7th. After speaking with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the beginning of the war, Biden said that, quote, "My administration's support for Israel's security is rock solid and unwavering." He quickly asked Congress for $14.3 billion for the Israeli war effort, on top of the typical $3.8 billion in annual U.S. military aid. It's important to clarify here just the fact that Benjamin Netanyahu is a far right-winger. You have here the Democratic Party working with essentially the Trump of Israel. This is somebody who, just over the summer, reimagined how the courts operate to give himself more power. And there were protests over that in Israel as well. So this is somebody who, you know, in any other country, any other context, would not be seeing the kind of support he's seeing right now. But it's the Israeli government. And you have this unwavering support from all of its allies, regardless of the humanitarian disaster that it is engaging in. Speaking of that, Gaza's children face catastrophe as death toll nears 4,000. That's from the UN. Israeli bombs hit school being used as a shelter, while warning comes that children form 40% of fatalities. So important to clarify that roughly half of Gazans are children. The life expectancy there is incredibly low compared to other places for obvious reasons. You have a lack of resources, lack of food, lack of water. Even before this, because of the blockade in place by the Israeli government that controls most of Gaza's borders. So even before October 7th, it was a catastrophe. But now, of course, with this indiscriminate bombing, it's as worse as it could possibly be. And these are, I saw this and teared up. These are the names of all of the children that have been hit by Israel in Gaza. So, and it's a massive, that's the entire list. As Adrian writes here, please sit with this image. It's unbelievable what all of our governments right now are supporting. In Tel Aviv, Israel, you have protesters out there. Now, these people especially are incredibly brave for what they are doing. I'll get to why in a second here, but let me just play a bit of this. So Israel right now, the Israeli government is cracking down on these anti-war protesters. As the nation writes here, the crackdown has begun. Israel goes after critics of its Gaza war. Palestinians and Jews in Israel are being suspended from universities, fired from jobs, and subjected to night arrests, all because of social media posts. That's just social media. So the people in the streets are incredibly brave for going out and protesting their government. I want to end on this because I will link to this below as I do all my sources, but this is a really great piece that goes into just what the impact any dissent of Israel is having on people's lives. As Vox writes, Israel's crackdown on dissent will only hurt it. So this is from Sigal Samuel, and this is somebody who is an author, has been critical of the Israeli government in the past, and he goes on before this to discuss how he was almost, or somebody complained about an appearance he was going to have, and luckily the venue held firm, and he was able to still do the appearance. But someone complained because he had been critical of Israel in the past. So as he writes here, if I, a Jew and citizen of Israel, am not allowed to question the Israeli government's narrative, then who is? The answer increasingly is nobody. And he goes on here to name person after person. So I'll do a few here, but I might be here all day if I read them all, that have been pushed out of their positions because of their criticism of the far right-wing Israeli government. So as he writes, the answer increasingly is nobody. Not the Pulitzer Prize-winning author Viatan Nguyen, who was supposed to speak at Manhattan Cultural Hub 92NY, but saw his event abruptly pulled after he signed an open letter condemning Israel's war in Gaza. Not the editor-in-chief of science journal eLife, Michael Eisen, who was fired after reposting an Onion article about Gaza with the headline, Dying Gazans Criticized for Not Using Last Words to Condemn Hamas. Not the Web Summit CEO, Paddy Cosgrave, who tweeted that war crimes are war crimes even when committed by allies, referring to Israel's war in Gaza, and then had to resign from leading Europe's biggest tech conference. Not the Boston Workers' Circle, a Jewish cultural center that got ousted from the Boston Jewish community's umbrella group after co-sponsoring a rally calling for a ceasefire. Not the Israeli professors, journalists, and lawmakers who have been suspended, fired, or even arrested for criticizing the war in Gaza. And not even the Israeli hostages who were recently released from Hamas captivity, when an 85-year-old hostage said that she was given access to medical care and treated well while in captivity. Israeli officials moved to prevent any similar press conferences in the future. So as he goes on to write, American commentators viewing all this through the lens of American politics call the silencing of Israel's critics cancel culture, but I just got to pause there for a second. I think people are doing that in a tongue-in-cheek kind of way because that is what the right wing tries to claim that the left is doing. Here is a clear example of what they complain about going on. And of course, people like Ben Shapiro are at the front of the voices that are excusing all of Israel's actions in Gaza. And again, he's someone who has been very focused on cancel culture, at least, you know, what he sees as cancel culture. But it's more serious than that. This is political repression, and that's a problem not only because it cuts against the values of free speech, but because it stands to hurt everyone, including Israel itself. So I'll link to the rest. It's a great article. It's worth reading, and it really gives you an idea of just how even something so obvious, so clear. Let's not support a far right-wing government bombing children, bombing anybody, bombing civilians in Gaza. Even just acknowledging that can possibly lead to you getting, fired, let go, become an outcast in your community because you are just stating something obvious.